What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome to the latest Gators Online show. Zach Albaverdi, Nick Del Toro here, coming to you on a weekend pushback episode this week so that we could talk about scrimmage number one for the Florida football team, which went down on Saturday in the Swamp. If you've been following along at Gators Online, you've read all of the intel, the highlights, the scoop coming out of the scrimmage. We'll get into some of it. We can't give it all away on the show. I definitely want to encourage you guys to head over to GatorsOnline.com, read all of our coverage from the scrimmage along with all of our fall camp coverage. But we are in the thick of it now as they are one scrimmage in, another one happening next Saturday. And then, Nick, before you know it, it'll be season opener time against Miami. How was your weekend, my friend? And how you feeling about scrimmage number one being in the books?
I think other than one injury, I think that's really the goal in fall camp. Is just to get out as healthy as possible. We'll get more into that, but just one injury, I think that's good. And then we'll get into, I guess, some of the concerns and then some of the things we like about it. But I think the biggest thing is trying to. There's only 2 more Saturdays until you play Miami. Try to stay as healthy as you can for those 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate news that came out of the scrimmage. Obviously, that if you guys haven't heard, Jamari Lyons, Florida's redshirt sophomore defensive lineman, sustained an injury. We'll learn more about maybe the details or severity of it from Billy Napier on Monday, but just from all the things that we've heard, it was a very serious injury, a really tough scene for Jamari and his teammates, and something that happened early in the scrimmage as well. So they had to kind of deal with those emotions and then find a way to regroup. And we'll kind of get into what that means for Florida and maybe some of the other guys that have to step up at the nose tackle position. But that was definitely, Nick, for now the last 3 straight fall camp scrimmages, the Gators have had a season-ending injury happen. First Boone, then Carroll, and now Jamari Lyons. And it's just unfortunate. Obviously, the Gators made it through the scrimmages in the spring, okay, but you hate to see something like this happen to anybody this close to the season, given all the work that they put in the offseason. So best of luck to Jamari. He's already had surgery and is on the road to recovery, and we'll learn more about that on Monday. But we also heard a lot of good things that came out of the Swamp, Nick. Some plays made on both sides of the ball. Maybe an area of concern as well that we reported on at Gators Online. But let's hit them with the positive first, Nick. And what were some of the things that you heard and we reported on that kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think with Montreal Johnson injury, I think what does Trayon Webb look like? What is Jacoby Jackson, Jaden Baugh, Caden Daniels? And I think you keep hearing really, Zach, about Jacoby Jackson. Obviously, we like to talk about the new toys, like to talk about the freshmen. But I think, just hearing good things, positive things about Webb and Jackson. And we still don't know if Montreal will be able to play against Miami, but to hear positive stuff from the guys that will be replacing Montreal, I think is solid. And then the wide receiver room, I think obviously we know what Eugene Wilson is, but hearing good things about Marcus Burke, Aiden Mizell, Elijah Badger, Chim Dike, and then Tank Hawkins with a couple touchdown catches. I think offensively, those are the things that kind of, stand out.
Yeah, and obviously I think Montreal Johnson probably on that side of the ball being, like you said, the biggest storyline that we were following. What does that look like in terms of the running back rotation? How do those guys kind of handle those responsibilities now that he's not in the lineup? From everything that we learned, it looks like Trayon Webb has kind of established himself as that next man up. And if the Gators had a game this Saturday, he would be the guy that would be starting for them. And then behind them, there's a lot of healthy competition. And it's, from what we reported and kind of what we've sourced, it seems like there's not a clear-cut favorite for that next guy after Trayon Webb right now. And that's, I guess, a good problem for Florida to have, because right now it doesn't seem like there's a guy that they don't feel comfortable putting in the game at their running back position. They like both true freshmen. They like Jacoby Jackson. Obviously, Tran Webb has kind of put himself into the spot where he's really earned the trust of the staff. But we talked all off season, Nick, about how the depth at the running back position would not only be able to withstand the loss of Trevor Etienne, but is in a good place. And I think based on everything that we've heard, that kind of showed itself on Saturday.
Yeah, and to me, that's something we've kept saying. Yes, would you like Trevor Etienne on this team? Yeah, he's a great player. He would make your running back room better, but I never thought that Florida's running back room was in shambles because Trevor Etienne left, and I think Montrell going down. I've always said I like the depth of Florida's running back room. I certainly like it more with Montrell healthy than with Montrell not healthy, but still don't have any concern. I think Montrell's injury, he'll be able to come back. And then right now, maybe you're just getting more reps for those guys, specifically the freshmen. And even Jacoby Jackson. Yeah, he was here last year, but didn't get any game reps, took a red shirt. For him to get more reps, really getting RB2 reps now after being, RB3 or 4 last year, I think is important for him. So, Billy called it almost, maybe like a blessing in disguise a little bit, just because you get this valuable experience for guys who need the reps.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Montrell's been through 4 camps. Like he can take some time off of camp. I always remember Dominic Easley's senior year. We're watching spring, and Dominic Easley would do a rep in the drill and then watch the rest. And do a rep in the drill and then watch the rest. And it was this guy did 8 reps today at practice, but you don't need to see it. Those guys, veteran guys, will get themselves ready.
Yeah, and that's kind of where they're at with Montrell. It's, again, I think the feeling inside the building, knowing also that it was a minor injury and that it was going to be something that he could play through and obviously get back, that they just kind of felt like they would be able to kind of make it through camp and maybe in the early part of the season. Okay. And that is, I think, a credit to where the running back room is at and how they've recruited and developed that position. And, I think right now the same can be said at wide receiver. That was a spot that there was a lot of concern about, Nick, heading into the offseason. Felt like there needed to be upgrades there because of the loss of Ricky Pearsall. And it's not a lot of proven players returning, outside of Eugene Wilson and Khalil Jackson. But to the credit of that room and then obviously of the portal work, they got in 2 senior transfers, both of whom made some catches on Saturday in the scrimmage. But then there's also been guys that have stepped up because of the arrival of those 2 transfers, and it's kind of a sink or swim situation. And guys like Marcus Burke, Aiden Mizell have had to step up. Otherwise, they were going to get lost in the rotation, and those guys have. Those guys both played well on Saturday from what we were told. A lot was made about Tank Hawkins and kind of the touchdowns that he scored. But I think to see all those guys kind of show up, Eugene Wilson is going to do what he's going to do, and that was once again the case on Saturday. But to see some of the new guys emerge, to see some of the seniors that you brought in, counting on them to kind of bring that experience, to have that show up once again in a scrimmage setting, I think made them feel good about where the wide receiver room has progressed, Nick, because it was a question mark way back in December when they were losing Ricky Pearsall. We didn't know what it was going to look like in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, you had to get a couple guys in the transfer portal. You're able to do that. And I think everything we've heard about Chim DK, I don't know that we were down on him necessarily when he originally signed. I thought, hey, it's probably really good that you're getting a guy who knows Graham so much. But just hearing about him PRing and his speed and the progress he's made as a redshirt senior in a new system, in a new environment, just maybe sometimes just getting a change of scenery can really help somebody's career. And I think he is, in the 6 months, 5 months he's been here, completely changed my perception of him as a player. And then you obviously get Elijah Badger, Khalil Jackson's coming on. Aiden Mizell, Andy Jean. You get a bunch of speed and space with Tank and TJ. Really reshaped the receiver room, and the whole thing I kept saying in like December, Zach, where it was like, listen, you need to find someone to take the attention off of Eugene Wilson, because right now you have Eugene Wilson and a bunch of other guys. I think Florida's done that through recruiting, but also through just developing the guys they already had on campus as well.
For sure. And then another guy that found the end zone on Saturday was Arliss Boardingham. He caught a touchdown pass from Graham Mertz, had a few other catches as well. And just a guy that kind of asking around about the scrimmage, Nick, and obviously hearing what he's done so far in camp. Like, he's a guy that they kind of feel like inside the building is maybe due for a big jump this season. You're talking about somebody who played wide receiver in high school, did not play the tight end position, comes here as a true freshman, red shirts, and doesn't even get in the game until the last contest of the season in the Las Vegas Bowl. And here he is right here, Boardingham with his touchdown catch, if you're watching on YouTube. But, he basically didn't even play in 2022. So last year was really his first year out there getting action at tight end, and he did more than that. I mean, he was contributing and making a bunch of plays. Now he's kind of found his comfort zone at the tight end position, both he and Hayden Hansen. He's another guy that didn't play that position in high school. He was a quarterback. So I think those two guys right there, they feel really good about tight end. But, man, if you've played NCAA, you know that Arliss Boardingham is a weapon for the Gators, and he was that on Saturday.
Yeah, and he's not as big as Kyle Pitts, but like that kind of receiver first. I think he's spent a lot of time and still needs to continue spending time developing as a blocker. But like you said, that's something that comes with time. You were a receiver and a track star in high school, not playing tight end, and Hayden Hansen was a quarterback. So you've got two guys at tight end who have really needed to learn the position and really learn the intricacies of playing tight ends. And I think you've gotten to that point now. So Florida's tight end group, I think, is interesting because you've got those two guys. You've got Tony Livingston. I wonder what, if any, kind of impact Caleb Rios will have, a guy who was very athletic in high school, catching passes, playing receiver, playing tight end. And then you go to Air Force and you throw 13 passes a year, and not a lot of those go to the tight end. So certainly a guy who is, when the tight ends go to blocking drills, coach, I got this. Don't worry. I've spent the last 3 years doing nothing but this. We're fine. So there's definitely some guys. I don't know that you necessarily have like maybe first team, second team, all SEC kind of guy impact. I don't know. Florida likes to use two tight ends a lot, but they haven't been featured a ton in the passing game. Maybe that changes with a Hansen or with a Boardingham this year. I think that kind of still remains to be seen, but you are getting weapons there developing.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think as we kind of go into some of the takeaways that we had from practice, we'll stick with the offensive side of the ball. Before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to myperfectfranchise.net. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. He's a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. Now, a lot there with kind of the skill positions, Nick, and some of the guys that made plays at running back, receiver, and tight end. I think we learned a little bit more about the quarterback and the O-line positions. Some good, some not so good. I think at the quarterback spot, Graham Mertz was kind of to be as expected. Now with a year under his belt, second season in the system. He was pretty sharp in the scrimmage from what I was told. We had the touchdown pass to Boardingham. DJ Lagway had the 2 touchdowns to Tank Hawkins and just overall looked better than he did in the spring scrimmages where he had some struggles, just to be honest with you. Now, he also had some moments Saturday where he looked raw and his youth kind of showed up, but he had some drives there where he really looked comfortable and just it was clear to people that he had made progress from where he was in the springs. That was obviously what you want to hear because DJ Lagway is one play away from being Florida's quarterback, Nick.
Yeah, I keep getting to hear the term gamer. I keep getting told about DJ, and you can take that whichever way you want. You can take that as he's not practicing well. But like when the lights show up, when they have competitive, good on good, 11 on 11, 7 on 7 stuff, that he shows up, or they shows up in that. Like, listen, Tebow didn't practice very, very good either. He was a gamer, so he's still a 19-year-old kid. Hasn't gotten really his feet wet in a game yet. He's had, I guess 4 scrimmages now. But it's a lot different. August 31st, 3:30, ball kicked off, 90,000. A lot different than
no contact jersey.
and empty swamp with only friends, family, and boosters. You got a black jersey on, so guys like Tyreek Sapp, Aaron Childs, Shamar James are not touching you, not getting anywhere near you. A lot different when Miami comes. So I think we're seeing and we're hearing a steady progression about DJ, and it's fine because you're not asking him to do a ton his freshman year.
Yeah,
you're really asking him just to learn, watch, observe, have your notebook out. Soak in as much as you can this year, because in 1 year from today, we will be talking about, knock on wood, we will be talking about DJ Lagway being Florida's starting quarterback heading into the 2025 season. But this year is really just a soak in, take as much as you can, and get the most out of the experiences that you will get and the opportunities that you will get.
Yeah, but to go from throwing multiple picks in a scrimmage to throwing multiple touchdowns, again, that's a good sign of progress. And remember, he had the touchdown pass in the spring game as well. So shout out to DJ. And like I said, hey, even Clay Millen had some downfield throws in the scrimmage. Had a touchdown that he tossed to one of the walk-ons. So sounds like overall the quarterbacks had a good day for the most part. I think along the offensive line, that's the one area on offense where still not where you want it to be. There is some bright spots. Obviously Jake Slaughter playing really well. I heard Najee Harris had a good scrimmage. Austin Barber is back healthy. That whole side is pretty solid. It's the right where it's still a work in progress, and it's not like it was like awful or anything like that. It's just not where it needs to be. The consistency isn't there. Unfortunately, Cam Waits did not take part in the scrimmage, so you didn't have him that you could look at as an option on the right side. But it's clear, Nick, that's the one question mark that is still lingering with this team, and that we really don't know where it's going to stand until the season starts and they have to face other competition. Now, you're getting a sense for it now, and that's why we're hearing that's the one area that's still kind of maybe the weak spot. But they also need to get guys like Caden Jones, guys like Cam Waits, guys like Rod Curdney, as much experience and looks as you can to figure out what you have and what you have to work with. And was unfortunate that Waits couldn't go yesterday, but I think that they're going to keep trying guys there, Nick, until they get the best 5 on the field.
Yeah, I just really haven't heard anything positive or negative about Devin Manuel, the Arkansas transfer, and it just doesn't seem like he's factoring in. I made it very clear, my opinion, that Florida needed to get veteran offensive linemen in the transfer portal, that they needed help, guys that could play right away. And Fletcher, you might have hit on Fletcher, and you might have hit on Noel, and you might have hit on your freshman, but you can't trust a freshman to be able to come in ready from day one and be ready to play SEC football right away on the offensive line. It's just tough. There are outliers. There are guys that do it. I know fans love throwing out the 3 guys who have done it in the SEC over the last 5-10 years and be like, see, this happened. I'm like, yeah, there's been 700 offensive linemen signed in the SEC, and you've found 3 that were ready to come in day one. You get Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, and I think he's slated to start at right tackle, but like I don't think his job is as safe as maybe I thought it was leaving spring. Right guard, they slid Damian George in, and he dedicated himself to the weight room. He's changed his body a lot.
He also won that job in the spring kind of by default because he really didn't have anybody there to compete with him because Waits was still playing tackle, and I don't know that they were cross-training Kearney as much as they are now.
It's easy to win an election when no one's running against you.
Yeah, and remember they didn't have Zandamela as well playing center, which was also keeping Kearney at inside. But that now that they have that luxury.
Really, you have Jake Slaughter. I don't know that Jake Slaughter is a guy who's going to leave for the NFL this year. Maybe he has a great year.
I do. I think so.
Gets a second, third round projection. But to me, what are you doing with Rod Kearney? If Jake Slaughter is going to be here for 2 years, he's starting at center for 2 years. Now you have Jason Zandamela, who will probably be a redshirt freshman next year. Your center position is seemingly set. Rod Kearney was a 4-star guard prospect who you slid inside because you needed some help. You didn't know
Zandamela was going to land on your lap, but now he has.
Right. So I think moving Rod to right guard to me is like, hey, man, we're pretty set at center. One of the guys, well, he can still do it, but cross-training him is like, hey, you're not going to start at center. We think you might have a chance to start at guard. Do you want to try that? Yeah. Put me in, coach. Yeah. So to me, I think the left side of the line is pretty set. Barber, Najee, and then Jake. And then to me, the right side, it's probably not good. The part that's concerning is that we're sitting here taping this August 11th. You're listening to it August 12th or 13th. Every day is getting closer to the game. And we talk about needing cohesion and needing chemistry with your 5 starting offensive linemen, and you simply just don't have it on the right side. And we're getting closer and closer to the game.
And I think that they will likely lean on Brendan Crenshaw Dixon and Damian George simply due to the experience that they have. Or maybe more so, I guess, with Damian being just an older, more developed player, as opposed to a Bryce Lovett or a Rod Kearney that is still kind of young, underclassman, hasn't been in the weight room as much. I think that they'll lean on the older guys first to see if they can get it done, and then if it doesn't pan out or it's not looking good or the consistency isn't there, you go youth movement. I don't know that they will make the decision to start a Rod Kearney or even certainly a Caden Jones over one of those transfer tackles. Like, to me, you brought them here, you brought them to start, you brought them to be in the starting lineup. You find out if it can't work first before you go with one of those young guys. That's how I envision it possibly playing out, but we'll just have to see. But that is still something that is a work in progress. Nothing is solidified, and that's something that Napier has talked about. So it's not necessarily a surprise. And then on the defensive line, Nick, they're going to have to figure out how they move forward with Jamari Lyons, who is a guy that if he wasn't going to start, which I don't think he was going to necessarily over Cam, but I think he was going to play starting reps.
Yeah.
Certainly had passed Desmond Watson on the depth chart, and he might even have started some games. Like, he might have just had some weeks where he was so good in practice, they just gave him the start over Cam Jackson. So, like, it's a difficult loss, but the biggest thing is that there's just not a lot of obvious guys that you can plug in there at nose tackle. You know that you got Cam Jackson and Watson, but after that, I mean, you're talking about guys that can plug up the middle. big guys. And I mean, it's really Maya Bordeaux. And, I think DeAndre Robinson was recruited more as an end, not necessarily as a nose, but maybe you put him in there. Florida's defensive line consists of two positions, a nose and an end. Do you now slide one of those guys that's playing end, Joey Slackman, Caleb Banks, Kelby Collins, he might be too small. Do you play now one of those guys that knows in certain situational downs and and things like that? If you want to go with somebody who's a little bit more athletic, a little bit longer, just give you a different look there. It's going to be fascinating to see what Florida does, because
maybe it's Forrest Brown, who's new, but size-wise,
he can play nose tackle. Yeah, he's 280 pounds. Like, I mean, at least Caleb Banks is like 320. Like, he's like. I don't think the answer is going to be asking Des Watson to play 30 more snaps.
That's the problem. I'm talking about Florida's line. I kept saying, like, hey, there's not a first or a second team all SEC guy on the line, but you've got so much depth that you're only going to be asking guys, hey, 20 snaps a game, 25 snaps a game. Give me your all, and we'll have guys fresh at the late third, fourth quarter, late in the game. We will have defensive linemen that are fresh, and you just lost a guy who is now you're either going to have to find another guy you can give 20 snaps to a game, or now Cam's playing an extra 10, 15. Des Watson's playing an extra 10, 15 at 450 pounds. I think the best aspect of Florida's defensive line was the depth, and you lost, almost a 1A, 1B guy in terms of depth chart with Cam and Jamari. So really, really tough blow for Florida's defensive line. They do have a bunch of guys, but you lost.
They're not 330 pounds.
you lost one of your best ones. Yeah.
And I mean, I would think, because of how deep they are at end, that you could probably stand to play one or two of those guys inside, like I said, in certain obvious, maybe, pass rushing situations. So we'll see what they do. Like, if you have to play Caleb Banks or Joey Slackman inside, like, it's not like that position is going to take a hit. You've got so much depth there with also Kelby Collins, Brian Taylor Jr. You mentioned Brown, the JUCO transfer that they just added. He's also playing that defensive end spot. So, they've got the bodies. It's just the production, and can you find the right fit there? That's something that they're going to have to figure out. They already started that on Saturday, Nick, because unfortunately, this injury to Lyons happened early in the scrimmage. So they had to move forward and figure out what they were going to do at nose tackle already once in the scrimmage setting. So on that note, per TJ Searcy, had a good day, got some pressure. The replacement for Princely Umanmielen looks like he's kind of held off George Gums and some of the other guys that they got at that jack spot. As much as it makes sense for Jack Pyburn to be playing that jack, I think it's TJ Searcy season right now.
That's kind of what we expected, and I think it would have been an upset. Just as highly as we've been on TJ, and that's based on what we've seen and what we hear. I think it would have been an upset, but I think it's encouraging that we've even talked about George Gums as much as we have, or have heard about George Gums as much as we have. I expect TJ Searcy to play most of those reps. I don't know that you need to rotate a ton, at that position. Princely was one of the guys that played the most number of snaps. Sure, you're going to be tired. You better be in good shape, but I think it's a position where TJ Searcy gets the most of those snaps. George Gums, fills in and gets spot snaps, spot reps there. But really encouraged. First off, George Gums looks incredible. looks like a created player. He knows his way around the weight room. For sure. And it's a credit to him how he's gotten himself ready. We're talking about a guy who started his career, I think, as a tight end, and now will be playing probably some meaningful snaps in the SEC, rushing the quarterback, rushing the guy he used to hope threw him the ball.
Yeah. It's, this is a guy that I feel like he kind of like flew under the radar somewhat during his freshman season, and all of a sudden was always freshman all SEC. And I think that it was always, maybe they were counting on him maybe more than I think even I realized, because I thought that the edge spot might be something that they wanted, or should I say Jack specifically. I thought that might be a position that they would try to add in the portal, but Cersei coming back as a true sophomore, he's kind of made the jump that he's needed to this offseason to kind of put himself in position to start, and seems like he's still on that trajectory. And then, I think before we jump to the secondary, which I think was probably the biggest bright spot on defense, we'll talk about the linebacker play. Not a lot to write home about in terms of like guys making a bunch of plays or like a linebacker having like a tackle for loss or something huge. But one thing I'd heard from one of the sources we talked to is that these guys did the stuff that up on the stats sheet. Being where they're supposed to be, not blowing plays, blowing assignments. And basically they didn't stick out like a sore thumb, which is unfortunately sometimes how Florida's linebacker play has looked. And it was solid. And from that standpoint, I guess it's a good thing.
And how about the future? Getting a little view of 5 and 8 sitting next to each other. Aaron Childs, Miles Graham on the field together. Shamar James, I think we're probably watching his last season at Florida.
I agree.
Maybe he comes back for his senior year, but I think we're probably watching Shamar James last season. So getting a look at, hey, what the future looks like and the future for the next 2 to 3 years with Miles Graham and Aaron Childs playing linebacker. I think they did a really, really good job this cycle at linebacker, and getting the chance to see those two play together probably puts a smile on Ron Roberts' face, Billy Napier's face, Austin Armstrong's face, to be like, okay, we got us a couple.
Yeah, and they didn't get to see that until Saturday for the first time on the field together, right next to each other, lined up at linebacker. They would have had a chance to see at least Miles in the spring, but they didn't even get to do that. He never made it to one of the scrimmages. Yeah, and then he had the back injury that required surgery, was out for the rest of camp. So, and then obviously Miles enrolled in the summer, so you haven't got to see him in a scrimmage until Saturday. But yes, there was that moment, Nick, where they had those guys lined up right next to each other and talked to some people that were there in the swamp. It was just kind of a cool moment, at least for the person I spoke to, and I'm sure some others felt that way on the staff. I mean, that's your future right there at linebacker. And I think both of those guys are going to play. They're both playing special teams, which is good because it's a nice way for them to get their feet wet and maybe get adjusted to the speed of the game, so they're just not getting thrown out there defensively in the rotation, because that is going to happen. But they get kind of at least work their way into the speed of the college game. And then I'm interested to see how they stack up in the linebacker rotation, Nick, because I think it's probably Shamar and Pup, and then Derek Wingo as the number 3 linebacker. And obviously they play different positions, but like I think you're probably looking at Childs and Graham being your 4th and 5th best linebacker, maybe 5th and 6th if you want to put RJ Moten ahead of them right now. But like I think those guys are only going to get better. You watch them go through position drills, they just look different. You can tell why they were rated top 100 recruits at that position. And I'm just excited to see what they look like when they get in the game, because as we were told, those are some big dudes, especially Childs, an alien.
The alien, yeah.
The alien.
The alien, yeah. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying tweeting that. I think ultimately, when you start camp, defense is probably ahead. I think, getting some of these touchdown passes, getting some positivity from the offense, getting that out. Whether you're and also scrimmages, you can. I said it about the spring game. You can make whatever you want to happen. You're calling the plays, offense and defense. If you want to score 70 points, you can orchestrate that. Now, listen, the players still have to make the plays, but you can orchestrate that as a coach. So I also wonder, how much of it is we're letting guys just play. We want to see what happens versus, hey, we need to get somebody confidence, a position group, a player. We need to get somebody some confidence. And even if the defense knows, like, hey, man, we were in some terrible calls. We were in some terrible coverages. I think they were like, they didn't help us. Like, well, maybe that helped whoever, get confidence,
Sure.
whether it's a quarterback or a lineman or a tight end or an entire position room. But it is good, that a lot of what the feedback we got was really positive for the offense. Because I do think the defense is going to be significantly better than they were last year.
Agreed. And we heard some positive things on that note from Saturday. We'll get into that here momentarily. But before we do, want to give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide better care to his patients. If you have dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of options to meet your individual needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. And Nick, I think probably the biggest thing that came out of the scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball was the play of the secondary, specifically the starters, the Jordan Castell, Asa Turner, Jason Marshall, Devin Moore group. Not really a surprise to see any of those guys get the nod with the first team, but all of them looked good from the sources that I spoke to, Nick. Devin Moore probably looks like the best corner on the team. Jason Marshall looks like he's regained his confidence. Asa Turner is bringing the physicality. He is a sure tackler. He showed that in the red zone. He had back-to-back stops on a tight end and a running back. And then Jordan Castell, a couple pass breakups, had an interception as well coming into his sophomore season, having a veteran now that he's playing next to, an Asa Turner. As the quote that I got from a source, Nick, they looked together in terms of talking about that group in the secondary, and that's what you want your DBs to look like.
Yeah, and I kind of wrote about it. I think we're writing about Jason Marshall and him talking, playing corner, it can be lonely. You're out there in man, press. I think it happened early. He gives up a really long touchdown at Utah, game 1. Shakes your confidence a little bit. At cornerback, you have to be able to have a short memory, like a closer in baseball. You give up a home run, you've got to forget that next pitch. Then, like 2 weeks later, you give up 2 touchdowns and another long touchdown. And you start to think, like, who the hell is behind me? And you look back, and it's a kid, Jordan Castell, 18 years old, playing his 3rd game. It's like the little Uzi Vert meme. Like, I don't know, it's only my 3rd day here. And then at cornerback, you start thinking like, well, I can't let anyone get behind me. And you start playing tight. And he admitted that he lost his confidence. I think Jordan Castell, yes, only a sophomore, started 11 games last year, played 680 snaps last year. Asa Turner has played over 1,200 snaps. Behind you, now you feel like, hey, I have a safety net. I can try to jump a pass, jump a ball. I can go all out to make a tackle because I'm not worried. If I miss this tackle, I know someone's behind me. It's not going to turn into an 80-yard touchdown. And I think that goes for all the cornerbacks having that, because Florida last year had a true freshman, true sophomore, true freshman as starting safeties, which doesn't give you a lot of confidence in terms of will they be there if I'm trying to make a play on a ball, go for an interception and don't get it, or is that going to turn into a 75-yard touchdown? So I think just having the experience back there at safety will help the cornerbacks play with a little bit more confidence.
Or if they are there,
Not,
they make the tackle.
yeah, well, yeah. One of the other safeties was in the top third in the team in missed tackles. So, yeah, that was the other thing too.
He developed a reputation for it. It just never went away. It just only solidified.
Well, he Miguel Mitchell had a knack for letting you reminding you that the tackling wasn't great.
So it's gotten better with Asa Turner. And was actually solid with Jordan Castell, despite how young he was, and despite being a guy that was a cornerback in high school that never really played safety. Like he got some reps there and some looks there, but he was a corner in high school, and he was 195 pounds. So the fact I think he graded out like a 76 tackle, which is pretty good according to Pro Football Focus standards, especially for a true freshman safety. So to have him and Asa Turner kind of leading the charge there is, I think, having the coaching staff feeling a little bit better about that situation. And overall, Nick, I think it was a good scrimmage other than Jamari Lyons' injury. I think that they got a lot of positive out of it in terms of what they found out about their running back rotation, what they learned about both lines of scrimmage, especially with the defensive line post Lyons injury. But one thing that I heard from talking to one of my sources, Nick, was that the thing that they were impressed with the most was the depth on the field, but they made sure to say that, like, it's not just depth as in, they've loaded up on scholarship numbers and now they just have a bunch of bodies. Like when they say competitive depth, it's real because it's true. Like they have more depth, but they also have within that depth guys that are literally and really competing for starting jobs or backup roles. And as Napier said last week, there's only a handful of spots where you have established starters on the team. But most of those 22 positions on offense and defense and their backup roles are up for grabs. And it's not necessarily because you're weak at those spots and nobody's really separating themselves. It's because you've got some talent upgrades, you've created some competition, and now that depth is there, I think, better than it's ever been before. So, what does that mean for the season? We're going to find out, but I do think that this has been a more competitive camp, which is what Napier predicted.
Yeah, and still some competition going as well. So you've got 4 more practices, I think, and then a scrimmage Saturday, and then you're kind of like a wind camp down into game week. We are not far. 2 more Saturdays away from being in game week, ready to go. I'm pumped for Miami. We are going to start collaborating with our guys down south, just down I-75, down I-95 there in Coral Gables at Kane Sport. If you have a On3 Gators Online subscription, you can read Kane Sport and read their projections, but we will have some breaking down of the Miami depth chart, their playmakers, and some matchup stuff broken down over these next 2 weeks. As Florida's done one thing, Zach, they've given us a good game to talk about 3 years in a row to kick off the season.
Yep, and this feels like a few years ago where we were covering Florida Miami in Orlando, and over a decade ago when you and I were down there in Miami for this, and now we get to have it set off in Gainesville like it was way back
Zach
in 08.
And a young Nick. Zach and the young Nick just hanging out in Miami Gardens because they don't have a stadium in Coral Gables, but hanging out in Miami Gardens. Something way better. This definitely feels different than that 19 game. Something way better about having it on campus, getting the Canes up here in Gainesville. I think it's going to be a really special game day environment. Should be electric. Have been looking forward to it and just getting more and more excited for it as it gets closer.
No doubt. Well, scrimmage number 1 in the books. We're excited about camp as it rolls along and the season gets closer. So if you guys missed all of the coverage. We got into a lot of the takeaways from the scrimmage, but if you want to read our full intel report as well as our insider, make sure you head over to Gators Online and do that, as well as all of our coverage coming out of camp and from recruiting, as that's about to heat up as well with the season getting ready to start. So we'll be back next week with another episode, see how things shake out in scrimmage number 2. And then, like Nick said, before you know it, we'll be previewing Florida-Miami in the Swamp August 31st. So we'll see you guys next week. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Abalverdi.